We are sitting in the car, driving back from Stockholm. Yet another road trip. I'm here in the car with my friend and spiritual brother Salman.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
And he had an interesting question which we thought were suited to discuss and dive deeper into as our bodies travel. Can you repeat the question for our...
Yes, I was thinking about the past and how people can get stuck in the past and reminisce about it, and how they can live in memories, either good, either bad, and how that affects our lives, and what our relation is to the past and how it should be, and why it evokes all these feelings, and how it controls our lives, basically.
Yeah, so there is this thinking of the past. With some people it evokes negative feelings. With some people it evokes positive feelings. Sometimes it's different chapters of your life. The darker chapters create this negative or sad or gloomy feeling, and the positive chapters create this nostalgia and happiness and positiveness. And perhaps the saying "it was better before" stems from this, that the elders, they think about their childhood and being content with what they had and happy with whatever there is, and grateful for the simple food and clothes and everything that they had. And then they look at the world today with the consumption and everything that is going on, and they think it was better before. So you have this thing, but what is its origin? Where does it come from? And it's more than a thought, basically. I think maybe it begins with thoughts and memories, but deeper inside it has something to do with the soul. Perhaps it's some sort of longing that is triggered for something that is better than what is now.
I mean, it feels like when you talk about the human being, you often see them being a product of their own past. Even myself and people amongst me see themselves as a product of their memories, a product of their experiences, and can reminisce and feel nostalgia to those memories and to those experiences, and might even feel a feeling that is or similar to nostalgia, to experiences and to times and to memories that they don't even have.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, I was thinking about, there are several layers to this question itself, but one layer is, the negative aspects, where we have that Satan says, this is quoted in the Quran, but I'm sure there are similar quotes from other scriptures, where it says that I will attack the humans from the left and the right and the back and the forth. So there are two directions which it doesn't attack from, which is from below and from above. But each of these directions means something or symbolize something, and the back is the past. Like he attacks you in different ways from the past. Like, if I had done this would have been the outcome. And this is interesting because one of the scholars, Allama Tabatabai, he writes that from all the hadiths that I've gone through, I've never seen the Prophet use the word if I had done like this or if I had done like that. He never used that word. this is one of the attacks from the past that he makes you. Or another is that you remember the bad things that other people have done to you, and this itself becomes like you have a grudge against them. Of course, all of these go against nostalgia. This is the negative things that we're talking about. Even if you remember your past sins, this is also some darkness to it. Why do you remember the sins that you have been forgiven for? And this is also another aspect, that a person should know the sins that he has done and which he has been forgiven for. He should know this. Anyhow, there is one thing that is separation. That the soul has been a part of a whole and parted from it and separated from it, and this has caused this longing back, the longing back to the older times, the better times. And we think that these older and better times are the memories we have from our childhood or our youth. But there are even more pre-eternal memories or ancient memories. And it's interesting because Rumi speaks about this in several ways in his Masnavi. He speaks about Ishq Kohan and Kufr Kohan, also this ancient love and ancient kufr that is mingled into the essence of man and into the earth and the teen that God created man from. So we have the separation which causes the longing back, and this is, you have several words for it. You have the fitra, but what is it? What's its nature? What's its, how can you define it? Again, if you look at Rumi, he has a very beautiful analogy in one of his poems. He says that imagine, that in the ancient times, for example, when the Muslims were at war with the disbelievers, and during these wars, for example, they captured prisoners of war. Now they captured these prisoners of war and brought them to the Islamic countries. Now these prisoners of war, all of them longed back to their origin, to their watan, to their homeland. Some of them were prisoners for like 1 year, some of them were prisoners for several years, some of them learned Arabic, some of them became free later, and some of them converted to Islam, some of them married, some of them returned. But even those who married and converted to Islam and knew Arabic and started an Islamic life, they still had this nostalgian origin.
All had a long to the past. Yeah.
Exactly. So they longed for the past. But, and this is the thing, because they had this longing for the watan, the origin. But he says that the children that were born from these people, they had no longing from the watan. Even if their ancestry goes back to some other country, none, for example, it goes back to Rome or Europe or Africa or wherever, they don't have the longing as their parents. Now, as second generation or third generation immigrants in the West, this is common when you sit with the elders. Oh, this is how it was in Iraq, and this is how it was in Iran or Afghanistan or in Lebanon or Palestine. They always talk about this.
Exactly. We can't relate to the things that they have experienced and longed to.
Exactly, and this is the same similitude, that we don't have a longing to this origin that some of us have, this ethnical origin, but our parents have it because they were separated from the whole.
A question arises here that I'm thinking of at the moment, and that is, you have humans that have a belief, and you have humans that don't. And the humans that have a belief should then maybe have a stronger longing to this past that we're speaking of than people who maybe don't have a belief and have, as you said, cut the past from them. Just as children born to immigrants that have, where their country of origin have been cut from them.
Yeah, very beautiful question. This, if we go back to the similitude of the children and the parents of immigrants, well, what does the parents do? They speak their original language with the kid. They show pictures. They say, oh, in Iran we have this, in Iraq we have this, in Afghanistan we have, this is the food, we played like this, there are tigers there are lions there are jungles there. And this creates some sort of longing inside the child.
Planting a seed, basically.
You're planting a seed, exactly. So this kid, when he goes to kindergarten later and school later, he says, I'm not like these people. I have another origin.
I have another origin, yeah.
I'm not like them. I don't eat this at home. I have something else. Then a summer comes and you take your child to your watan. And after that, well, if you plan it carefully and adjust it to the needs and to the, to the level of the kid. So it's funny for him, it's fun to be there, so it's not like a burden or like a mess. What happens? He will come back and he will tell his friends, I was in my homeland, it was so fun there, it was, etc.
I sensed a connection to a distant past or
Exactly.
an origin I haven't experienced before.
And think if you take him back and he meets your grandmother and grandfather, sits in their lap, and they tell him stories, and he don't understand half of it. He has never eaten this food, these drinks, but he loves it somehow. You know, this is the beauty. You awaken something deep inside him that he knew nothing of before. And this is, as I say, he's cut from this. He has no memories of it. But you make this, you bring him there. This is the dhikr that religion comes from. You know, we are, the Christians say that Jesus was the Son of God. Well, it's better to say like, we are the sons of Jesus, or Prophet Muhammad, or Prophet Moses, or Prophet Jesus, all of the prophets, Abraham, all of them, we are their sons, cut off from the origin. And they are our fathers. Even there's the hadith from the Prophet, he says, me and Ali are the fathers of this nation. They are the fathers. They come to us and we are these children, unknown, ignorant of our past. And they say, hello, there's a watan, you came from it, it looked like this, you were like this. And then they tell you, and then they try to make you travel there. And even some of the travels are 100% religious. For example, you have the Hajj, or you visit holy places, so you physically go to these places, so you see them. And you have been in Hajj, Saman.
Yeah.
You were there later than me. When were you there? How did it feel the first time you were there, when you saw the Kaaba?
It was back in 2018, if I remember correctly, and it's a feeling that we can describe using this analogy. It's basically like when you seek God, or when you seek your imams, your prophets, in that search they plant within you a seed, and that's what comes to life, maybe later in life, or maybe in during a ziyarah or during a hajj, as you said, because usually you don't get anything from the hajj if you haven't formed a basis or a foundation. And I think that foundation might be the seed that we're speaking of, a connection to the distant past, a connection to our human origin, so to say.
Many of people I've spoken with who, for example, come to the Kaaba, the first time they touch it, they feel like being struck by lightning. And it's like, well, this is something physical, of spiritual origin. There's a lot of documentaries about the Kaaba and this Hajar al-Aswad, the silver stone. And when it has a spiritual dimension, spiritual origin, a heavenly origin, and it comes and you touch it with your body, with your fingertips, which are one of the portals of your soul, of course your soul will start to shake, because it's such a strong connection that it's like you're putting your fingers into the power outlet, but you're filled with spiritual energy. So the religion's mission is to remind you. Inna anzalnaha al-dhikr. We have sent down regarding the Quran. The Quran describes the Quran as a dhikr, as a remembrance. We have sent you the remembrance. What is the remembrance? You are reading these verses, and their aim is to remind you of something ancient. Bani Israel, all of these previous nations that were there, the Qawm of Ad, the Qawm of Thamud, the Qawm of Lut, the Qawm of Salih, the Qawm of all of these, the Qawm of Abraham, all of these different nations and people, they are not, it's like the stories of our fathers when they speak of Iraq and Iran. But in reality, these are our stories, So
basically, we can talk about a human collective memory that we're all sharing. Basically, it's not personal to me. It's not personal to you. It's not personal to anybody. It's a common homeland. It's a common longing for this distant homeland, where we all have a part of.
Exactly. And this is the beauty of it. It's like Rumi says, he says in a poem of his, he says, they asked me where my homeland is, and I answered, the land in where my sweetheart resides. The place where my beloved is. That's my homeland. Imagine yourself the example of you are in this free world, like you and me now. We are sitting in this car driving from Stockholm. We feel free. We can stop wherever. We see all of these beautiful trees. We see the sunset. We see all of these cars. We have been at the wedding. And then the police stops us and takes us to prison. Now, every day that we are in this prison, we will feel a longing to come out, Even if they take us, in the prison there is this courtyard, you're sitting there, you're eating, you're drinking, you're sleeping, you're going in the courtyard. So you're almost doing the same things that you're doing in this world, in this life, but in prison, but in a smaller scale. And that's the thing. Because you have been in freedom and you go to prison, you feel like limited. This limiting feeling of limiting causes this longing from you that, I long for freedom. But if your child is born in this prison, he doesn't know anything better. He's with his father and mother. He doesn't care.
That might explain also how we feel about death and the perspective on death, especially when death becomes a portal, a door to fulfilling this longing, to stop this sorrow of separation.
Exactly. And that's why the Prophet, for example, he says that this world for a believer is a prison, and when it dies, that's his freedom. Death is freedom. It's a ticket out. It's a ticket out from this prison. What does that mean? It's not an end. It's not an annihilation. It's not nothingness and blackness. No. That's when you go back to your origin, Because this is the thing. It's like we came from somewhere into this prison. So when we come out from this prison, we are going back to where we came from. The only difference is that the moment that our souls intermingled with our material bodies, it forgot. This is the nature of modern materia. It makes you forget. That's why when you sleep, your soul separates from, but it sees everything. But the moment it comes back, it forgets. It forgets, and you knew that you dreamt, but you don't remember the details. And this is what the religion wants to do. No, not only the religion. The religion wants to take you to the place where you start a spiritual path. Because we think in religion is the dhikr is only to say Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, all of this. But this is the training of the tongue. The true remembrance and dhikr is when this goes into the heart, and the heart, which is the portal to the unseen, it opens up. And you start remembering your divine origin, and now you make the hamd. Now this alhamdulillah, this subhanallah is not the same as the tongue. When you remember the ancient glory, ishq quhan, you know, this ancient love, and you remember the ancient kufr and that were in the past. You remember them. Now your actions are not the same. And living in this past is positive. Like, because you know that you're going back there. You know that you're going to meet your beloved. Because as much as we want, this world has limitations. You know, you eat, you need to go to the toilet, you need to... This world, one of these things that it has is... there is limitations. For example, if you imagine that you want to learn something, how to build a house. From this wanting to actually creating the house and building it, it takes a lot of time. You need to learn a lot, read books, look at YouTube, look at instructions. You need to go fetch the material, you need to build it. This is a several years long process. Why? Because everything is madda, it's materia. Materia has this attribute. But in the next world, or in the spiritual world, this is not like that. If you want, your wanting is the creation. So you don't have these limits. That's why it's a prison. You don't have these limits. You know, you can be hungry for 8 hours, then you eat for 5 minutes, and it's gone. So to sum it up, religion came to teach us the ethics of remembrance. But Irfan came, and walking the spiritual path means to actually implement them and revive them. Yeah, I mean, like, revive yourself, revive your origin. See that you're on a path, you're traveling. From your watan, you came down here, and now you're going back to your watan. You're here just for a charter trip. You're here 1 week.
To revive the plan back home, basically.
Yes. You come here to gather experiences to go back home. That's why you travel. The spiritual path is not to travel elsewhere. It's people think that you're on the start line and you're going to the goal. No. You're on the start line and you're finishing on the start line. It's like the poem of Rumi when they say, you know, you have an arrow and a bow, and they tell the archer that where you shoot the bow, where it falls down, there's your treasure. So he pulls back the strings of the bow and he shoots the arrow, and it goes very far away. So he goes there and he starts digging. He doesn't find any treasure, so he goes back. This time he shoots not as long. He goes digging, nothing is found. And he continues with this all day long until finally just drops the arrow at his feet, and he starts digging under himself. And there he finds the treasure. And Rumi wants to say that The treasure is not elsewhere. كنت كنز مخفي فأحببت. I was a hidden treasure and I love to be known, so I created the creation. This is God saying in a hadith Qudsi to Prophet Dawood. The hidden treasure is inside you. So this is what we do. Religious people think that they are on the start line and they are going somewhere. So they run off to the mosque, run off to the temple, run off, finding this. Well, it's inside you. It has been there all along. What you're seeking is already with you. This is the origin. This is the homeland. Inshallah, we will meet there.